Hello everyone and welcome to my corner of the world. Today I'm sharing a fun fold. It's a double flap which we've decorated up, and then inside we've got the place for writing our message. And if I just move the envelope out the way, you can see that it sort of folds like that. So let's make a start in how I made this card. Now, the first thing I have is a piece of early espresso cardstock, and it measures 11 by 4¼ and I have scored it at 2 and 3¾ I did it on that end, and then I turned it round and did exactly the same, rather than just score all 4 lines together. Now, the reason I did that is because I need this to meet exactly in the middle and sort of be even flaps and everything. I found that if I used exactly the same grooves on my board, then I could guarantee my result. So that's how I scored this piece. And then we're going to put the folds in, and so I'm going to put, this is the sort of second fold down from the bottom. That's going to go in, and then this one is going to come back on itself like that, and we're going to repeat on the other side. Now, before I assemble it, I'm going to do a little bit of decoration on this piece, and I'm going to use some embossing powder, and I'm going to be using on this card copper. It's a while since I've used copper embossing powder, and it really is quite pretty. Now, my stamp set that I'm using is the Cottage Rose, and the front piece of my card, I used this stamp. This was my greeting here, and then I'm going to use the leaves to decorate the inside of the card, and I also used it to decorate my envelope. I actually embossed the envelope as well, which gives a really pretty finish. So I have done several videos on embossing before, but I'm just going to emboss this one piece. All the others I've pre-done so that you can, I don't waste your time. So I'm going to put my embossing on the sort of inside panel, and I'm going to do one going from the top and the other coming up from the bottom. And I'm using the Versamark, which is the clear ultra sticky ink, and I've got my embossing additions kit, and I'm going to just sprinkle some on there. Just give it a little bit of a tap to make sure that it gets on the ink, and a little bit of extra out the way there. Then I'm going to go do the other side. A little bit of a tap to just make sure it gets in all the crooks and nannies. And then I've got all my spare powder in there, and so when I finish my video, I will pour it all back in to my little pot. So out with the embossing gun, and I have the tweezers from my embossing additions kit just to hold it in place. You don't want to have your fingers too close to this, because this will burn if you're not careful. So I'm just waiting until it starts to melt. Can you see? It appears like magic off of the dark card there. So that's that side firmly cooked. I'm just going to go over to the other side, and you should see that start to appear. Whenever I have somebody new to my classes and introduce them to heat embossing, I think it's the thing that just inspires people the most when they see that embossing come to life. All right, now I did the same for my inside piece. I embossed that exactly the same as I've just shown you, and I'm going to add this to the middle portion of my card. Get my glasses on so I can make sure I line everything up. Now, because I've used liquid adhesive, which is what is my favorite, it does give me a few moments to just make sure it goes in the right place. I get a little bit of playroom on there. Tiny little bit leaked out, but that doesn't matter. That's just fine. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is attach it to the back piece of my card. And I've got a little tip to share with you. In fact, 2 tips to share with you on this. So this piece is going to be folded like that. Okay. And then I've got a piece of thick Very Vanilla. Now this is 5.5 by 4.25, which is exactly the same width as this piece here. And we want to stick it on the center of that piece of card. Now you can use a ruler and a pencil and make marks and stuff like that. But if you happen to have some grid paper, which you can get through my online store, you will see that there's a piece here that has 0 in the middle. Now, if I line up the middle of my cardstock with that 0, then it means that I've got this nice dark line down the middle here, which I will be able to line up the top and the bottom of where my join is here, and get my piece of card stuck in exactly the right place. Now we've got to find the center of our piece of card. Now a half of 5.5 is 2 3/4 inches. So if I put one corner on the 2 3/4 inches either side of my 0, that is going to be my center. And if I've got it all lined up with the lines, then the center will continue, and this will be the center of this edge. So that's our first little tip. Now my next tip is one that I learned from my dear friend Ellie in the UK, and that is to how to wrangle tear and tape. Now I am using tear and tape on this card rather than liquid or stamp and seal, because this is going to have quite a lot of weight hanging from it, and I don't think those adhesives will be strong enough, but I do know that this tear and tape will work perfectly. So I'm just going to use my bone folder to just give that a little bit of a burnish to make sure it's stuck. Then I'll get my tool, pick your tool, and I'm going to put the backing of the tape, just pull it a little way back, and then make sure that it's sort of folded back like that. So now we're going to get everything lined up again, since I moved it. There we go, like that. And I'm going to fold my card, and I'm going to be placing the gap here on the 0 mark. I'm holding this piece of card down with my fingers so it doesn't move around. And I'm going to make sure that my top edge is lined up with the top edge of my vanilla, and the 2 folds are on that 0 line, and I'm making sure that the same is true down at the bottom here, and I think I'm happy with that. I'm just going to press it down firmly. Now, because I haven't exposed all of that adhesive, if I do find I'm a little bit out and want a second chance, I'll be able to gently pull off the piece of early espresso and be able to lay it down again. But I'm happy that I've got that lined up. And so I'm just going to gently pull the piece of tape away and just burnish that with my bone folder, and the same on the other side. Okay. Now, one of the things you have to be really mindful of is when you cut your pieces of card for this particular project, you have to make sure that you have got accurate cuts, and that this piece is 4 1/4 and this piece is 4 1/4. And what I did before I started my video is I just laid one on top of the other just to make sure that it was actually the same, and I needed to just trim a tiny bit off of one of them just to make sure everything was matching. So there we've got our piece of card. Now I'm going to use a specialty paper, and I have used this before, and this is called Pearlescent, and it is a lovely paper, absolutely lovely. It has the most gorgeous sheen, and it cuts with dies beautifully, and it cuts and it embosses with an embossing folder. Now, I have tried to stamp with ink, and I think I picked it up before it dried, and I did smudge it. So I think if you use ink on it, you'll need to let it dry for a little longer, or use your heat tool on it to just dry it off. But it also, you can do heat embossing, and then you don't have to worry then about it smudging, because you've already set it with the embossing powder. So I have run my pieces of pearlescent paper through my cut and emboss machine with the Painted Posies embossing folder. Now, this is a 3D embossing folder, and it's got lovely deep sort of molding on it, and the effect is very pretty. So I've got a couple of pieces here that I've already run through, and you can see that the embossing on it really sort of makes it all catch the light and shimmer really prettily. And I'm just going to attach that with some of my liquid adhesive. I'm going to make sure I've got it the right way round. I think this is the right way round. So there's some on that side. And we're going to pop it down. Like that. And then on the other side. There we go. There. So those are my two pieces there. And then we've got some bare pieces at the back here. So I'm going to use a couple of strips of the Abigail Rose Designer Series paper. I have used this before, and will have a link to it on my my blog. so that you can see some more details of it. Now, I haven't shared much in the way of dimensions with you, other than the sort of scoring on my early espresso piece. And that is because if you follow the link below this video, it will take you to the post that describes this particular video, and all the dimensions will be on there, and you'll be able to get the information that you need without you trying to write it down fast while I'm talking. So there we have our card. We've got a final little bit of embellishment that I'm going to share. Now, I have shared in the past my love of these decal rectangle dies. I just love the fact that they've got this real sort of raggedy edge, and it really, I just love it rather than the cut edges. And as I was designing this card, it became clear that this was kind of going along sort of a vintagey look, shabby chic vintage, whatever you'd like to call it. And so by using the decal edge of these pieces, it just helped to do that. So I've got my mini here, and I've got the number 1 plate, that's the base plate, and then a number 2 clear plate, then my card, and then my die, and then I'm going to put another number 2 plate on the top. And we're just going to crank that through. It makes a few funny noises. So there we have our piece there. And I'm going to attach this to the front of my card. Now, when you've got a card like this and we center things up, we want to make sure that when we add our front piece, we don't stick it to the other piece that needs to open. So I am going to put my dimensionals just on one end here. Now, the next danger is that if we put one sort of here on the piece of card, we could find that it is too far across and it will stick. So in order to prevent that happening, I'm actually going to put another dimensional here, and I've just popped it so that it is just inside my fold, and that way I know that it's not going to overhang and cause me issues. So we'll just go ahead and get that down. I'm just going to center it up and press firmly. And then my final piece is the flower from the that I've embossed, and it's from the same stamp set that I shared with you a few moments ago, Cottage Rose, which, as luck would have it, also has a coordinating die set, lots of flowers and leaves and things, and so I was able to cut it out once I'd embossed it, and we're just going to put a few dimensionals. Now I'm going to keep them to the center of my flower for the same reason as we were careful about how we attached this piece, because this is going to go like this, and so I don't want to put any dimensionals that could actually get onto my card. So that's why I've placed them all to the center. And then we're just going to pop it down like that. So we've got a lovely background to make it pop. So there we have it, a fun fold, double flap fun fold. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. I really appreciate you choosing to spend some time with me. If you have enjoyed the video, perhaps you go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you don't already subscribe, perhaps you'll hit that subscription button. And any comments you have, I'd be delighted to read them. Well, thank you once again for joining me today. Bye-bye for now.